Yo, you're back. You pressed play right here on the Gill Connections podcast. Super stoked that you would join us here once again. 300 and something episodes. It still blows my mind. And the cool thing is, you guys and gals keep showing up. I'm so humbled and so happy to be your host, Mike Cunningham. Someone called me the pod father of track and field podcast. That humbles me as well, to be able to have that unofficial moniker. And just stoked to bring you another awesome coach. Really excited about this one. I know I say that every week, but it's true. Like, this is the one thing I really am true. I'm passionate and love to give voices to track and field coaches around the country and around the world. And I'm excited to go this. I know this isn't the first coach we've had from this state, but we don't have very many coaches from this state, and we'll learn that here in a second. But before that, I do want to kind of just heads up, make sure you're aware of this. So we just started this probably about a week or two ago when you're listening to this episode, the Gill 1918 project. So, here on Mondays, we have our long form, very intensive coaches interviews, right? Where we talk about how they got into track and field, how they got into coaching, when that became an idea, all the different stops along the way, lessons learned, mentors that have poured into them. And we're super stoked that is going to continue every Monday right here. We're going to have another exciting coach's story to share with you. But then the goal is from Tuesday through Sunday, short form podcast. So these will be 10-minute to 30-minute podcasts. And this could be, think of this as the TED Talks of track and field podcasts. So we're going to have coaches explore X's and O's. So, how to make a javelin thrower better, how to make a distance runner better, how to use technology in coaching, why I host a youth track and field camp, things like that. And this is your opportunity to have your own episode. We're opening this up to everybody out there, coaches, strength and conditioning coaches, all events, cross country, etc., for you to record your own podcast. So if you're interested in that, hit me up. All my information is below in the show notes, my email, my cell phone, Twitter, all that kind of stuff. Hit me up. Again, very broad TED Talks of track and field. So pretty much everything is on the table. And again, I would love to be able to help you explore your voice, explore your thoughts, and really add value to other coaches that are listening out there. So I hope you're enjoying those now. They have started every day, Tuesday through Sunday. As long as we have content, as soon as we get that content, we'll publish it. Okay, enough of that commercial. If you're watching this on YouTube, you see him, he's yawning, he's bored. He's like, I thought this was about me, and you are right. Help me welcome from the great state of West Virginia. We don't have many from West Virginia, so I'm super excited. This is the head coach of West Virginia State University, the wise, the wonderful Mr. John Boisette. John, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, doing well. Got to sleep in today. It was an off day for our guys, so definitely got to sleep in. Generally, I'm up at 6 a.m. every day.
I love it. I love it. And I want to show off my French chops. I learned that John is actually French. He's got some French in his family. So it's actually French-wise, it'd be pronounced Boisette, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, I love that. I was giving you a very Italian. I was going Boisette when I was first thinking about it, and I was like, well, that just don't sound right. It has to be Boisette. I love that, man. John, okay. So one of my favorite little quirks, things to do, I love to know mascots of every college out there. So I genuinely don't know West Virginia State's mascot, but don't tell me because I want to think, because I like to think about the regional and, the division and where you're at in the state. So West Virginia State, it seems too cliche as to say you guys are like the Miners or something like that. So I don't think that's it. Maybe you're something more. I'm gonna call it generic, like an animal. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go real generic for some reason. Are you guys like the Tigers or something like that?
We are not.
What is it?
You want another guest or
Oh, okay, I'll take. Yeah, okay, yeah. All right. Let's give me some clues. Is it an animal?
it's more of an insect.
Oh man, what a great clue, because that means it's a cool mascot, because there aren't very many of that. It's almost like 20 questions. All right, so it's more, you said it's more like an insect though. You didn't
Oh,
necessarily say it
it
is.
is.
Okay, it is. Okay. So West Virginia, are you something cool like a monarch or something? I don't think so. I don't know if anybody's a monarch. All right, what is it? I'm gonna
It's a yellow jacket.
Oh, you're one of those things that are just irritating and just constantly and you're hurtful. Yeah, okay, that makes a good mascot actually. It's interesting the evolution of mascots as far as like the, how they're portrayed and drawn. Back in the 80s and 90s, all these mascots from Alabama, Clemson, etc. They were more like inquisitive and fun looking mascots. Now everybody has that death stare. We're gonna murder you. Now Yellow Jacket's kind of a murderer. Is the Yellow Jacket represented like a real like fighting attack kind of killer Yellow Jacket, or is
Yeah,
it more
pretty
like a
much. I
yeah?
know one of the slogans here is "Fear the Sting."
Yeah, okay.
to
There it is.
sing, so, but
I
so
love
I
that.
would say, yeah.
I don't know how you could draw a Yellow Jacket friendly, fun joke because Yellow Jacket. There, boy, I've never met a nice Yellow Jacket. Never,
No.
never, never. All right, John. Well, let's get into learn about you, my friend. I mentioned West Virginia. We don't have many coaches. First of all, it's a smaller state, so there's one reason, right? Not many colleges in West Virginia, and we have high school and colleges coaches on here before. We did have. Last year, I interviewed a high school coach from every state, including West Virginia, to talk about their state meet series. And I did learn one of my favorite facts after interviewing 51 coaches, because we included Washington, D.C. West Virginia is one of only two states that has my favorite event as a state meet event, and that's the shuttle hurdle relay.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
love
yeah.
that. Do you, as a college coach, does that? I mean, like, because you only do it like at the relay meets. It's not an official event, which it should be.
Mm.
But as a college coach inside that state, do you like that, or do you just like it's a waste of time
I
recruiting?
think I,
When you think
I
about
do
recruiting and stuff.
I do like it from a developmental standpoint
Hmm.
because that lets you showcase all your hurdler skills. And almost like that backup quarterback role, some of the quarterback understand they won't get in, they won't play, especially on those high intense levels. So when you add the shuttle hurdles, that means everybody has to be ready,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
because you don't want to be that guy that lets down the shuttle hurdles.
I
So I think it's
know.
definitely a good thing to have from a developmental standpoint for sure.
It almost, I assume, has to force the high school coaches to coach more hurdler, like to not shy
Mhm.
away from that group. If you have a 4x1, it's like, well, I better put four. They better at least be somewhat competent sprinters on the field. Well, if I got a shuttle hurdle, I better have four somewhat competent hurdlers on the field. So I loved. I always knew Iowa had it as an event. I thought it was the only state. So when we had the coach from West Virginia high school there. Yeah, I was stoked because it's my favorite event in the whole wide world. Like I wish it was the Olympics, NCAA, NAIA, JUCO. I think it should be everywhere. I think it's pretty stinking cool, man. Well, John, maybe you're a hurdler. I have no idea. Let's dig into your past. Let's start with why don't we get in our Wayback Machine here, John? Where does track and field start for you? Assuming you were an athlete, or are you a
So it
middle
was
schooler, high schooler, college? Where does it start for you?
started in elementary school. I remember we used to do the school used to shut down. I was born in Connecticut. I went to I think it was Morris something I can't remember. Um, but yeah, I went to an elementary school in Connecticut, and they used to do a mile.
That you don't remember your elementary school is okay. Trust me. Everybody right now is going, yeah, I have no clue. Of course, there's some like people who had like amazing elementary. They're like, oh, I was at William Morris Pelicans and
Yeah,
yeah. And that's all
it
good.
was Norris. It was Norris school.
It's-
It was Norris school. I went to two different elementaries, O'Brien and Norris.
got it.
Um, and haven't had to talk about it for a while. They used to have a mile run every year, and I remember I ran the mile. I came in second, and I think third grade I ran probably a 6 minute mile.
Dude.
It was third or fourth grade. And I think that's when my track journey really started, but I didn't know it yet. And I remember because I forgot my sneakers that day, and I ran in like the low cut boots, some low
Dude.
cut boots running a 6 minute mile. But I didn't think about it because I just thought that was normal. My dad had me in the boxing gym from 3 years old. I was a three sport athlete. I was boxing, football, soccer.
Well,
I didn't, I
now
didn't
that,
run
that
track.
now that's new. After 300 and something episodes, John, you could forgive me that I feel like I at least feel like I've heard it all, right?
Well,
Everybody's journey is super unique, but there's a lot of themes I hear. I can't recollect that anybody had grew up as a boxer. Was dad a boxer? Like, how does boxing get into the family that you're doing it at 3 years
my
old for
dad,
crying out?
my dad definitely messed around with boxing a lot. He was on his journey to do a pro career, and then he had to make adult decisions.
Yeah,
The family needed more money,
yeah.
so then he just went off and started working. But I've always been around boxing pros my whole life. I've actually done some professional camps for a couple fighters as
Wow.
well. So when the track season's not in, I'll take some time and go to a camp and help and assist with strength conditioning and stuff like that, and even some technical things.
Are there now? We did have Larry Wade, Yvonne and Larry Wade when they were at UNLV. We had them on the podcast a long time ago now, and Larry he was just starting into the boxing training portion, and now he's Jake Paul's trainer for crime. I mean, he's huge in boxing now. Do you? Kind of, John, I forgot to tell you this before we hit record. I'm kind of a tangent guy, so I'm going to hear something that's interesting. We're just going to go for it. And so, even though we still even, we still even got to high school track yet, and I'm like, oh, boxing, let's talk about that. So, from your experience of boxing, seeing, knowing your dad's history and your history in boxing, are there similarities? Like this always kind of interests me. Are there similarities between boxing and track? And I don't necessarily mean like training, because our sport is the basis of all sports. I have to assume, and seeing Larry Wade's videos, I know there's conditioning and sprint training and things like that, but are there like mindset similar, like just the two sports? Are there any similarities, or are they like completely opposite
No,
ends?
they're identical, if you ask me. I don't even look at boxing and track as a sport. I look at it as a lifestyle.
Mm,
That's really what it is, because you're trying to
interesting.
improve the whole person, right? A sports, I mean, obviously there's strategy, but if your body isn't at 100%, you might not win, right? In other sports, your body might not be at 100%, but you can rely on tactics and strategies. But with track and field and boxing, if your body's not 100%, then you can't rely on a tactical strategy.
Yeah.
Because most of our tactics and strategies rely on endurance, some type of component of anatomy. So from a mindset standpoint, from a training standpoint,
Yeah.
it's pretty much the same. With boxing, you got the weight too. That's more prevalent, right? When to cut weight, when to peak, how fast do you want to drop weight? That 5 pounds is a tremendous difference. And even in track and field, that 5 pounds is a tremendous difference because weight is a liability.
Hmm. Yeah, outside of the relays that we just talked about, I could see boxing being similar, like you're saying there, because in track, if you're in the 100 meters, mile, doesn't matter. It's you. There's no one to, there's no teammate to pass the ball to you or you to throw or things like that. It is you, and whether you do it or do it not, it is on you. And boxing feels very much the same way. I'm in that ring, and boy, it don't matter what my teammates. It's just me and this dude or gal in front of me, and we got to make it happen, Captain. So it's interesting. Okay, keep going. Sorry, that just fascinates me. So you kind of grew up boxing. You ran in army boots. I'm going to embellish the story. Army boots for third grade. How does the athletic journey continue to high school?
So yeah, I mean, in high school, I actually played football as well.
Mhm.
And Shay, he was my track coach. He went to Penn State. He was actually a swimmer for Penn State.
Oh wow.
And he saw me in the weight room one day. He's like, "Dude, you should do track." And me, I'm just like, "Man, I'm playing football. Yeah, I'll come out there. Yeah, I'm gonna come out there." And I just remember football season ending, and he's like, "Dude, you told me you was coming out for track." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm coming out." He came back 30 minutes later and grabbed me. He's like, "We're going out to the track." So I'm laughing because I'm like, "Man, this guy's gonna make me do track now." So I originally started off as a thrower. I was, man, I was really small in high school. I think I was 135, 145, but I was strong. I could bench press over 225. I could
Wow.
squat over 405. Um, and it's pretty interesting. But throwing wasn't going well for me. So I threw javelin at one meet, and I remember the jab hit me in the back of the head, and I was like, "Coach, I don't think I'm a thrower,
Wait,
right?"
what do you mean a jab? I mean, that's no live people say that a javelin
So,
hit them in the back of the head.
so,
What do you
so
mean?
when I went to go throw it, I kind of turned my arm a little bit, and on the way
Okay.
forward, and it, and it and
John, you painted the picture as if you were in the infield and a javelin flew, and I was like, nobody alive tells this story, dude. Okay, you hit
so
yourself. Let's make sure the story is
yeah,
right. You hit yourself
yeah,
in the back. All
100%.
right, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm sure no other javelin thrower has ever done that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. So
So
you're
I'm
like
like, man,
maybe something else.
yeah. So I'm like, man, I don't think throwing's for me. And we didn't have any hammers at the time. And I think I would have been a good hammer thrower because my sister was, I think, when she was in high school, she was top 20.
Hmm.
Um, but so we go out one day. I'm like, "Hey, I want to run." He asked me to race I think our third string running back. I think I'm not gonna say his name, but and I beat him in the race, and he's like, "Okay," so he tricks me. Um, I'm running, my first race ever was in the 4x4 anchor.
Okay.
And my one of my teammates' friends still have the video. Every time I come in town, they play it. And this kid is probably like 150 meters down the track. And he's like, you got to catch him. I'm like, man, no problem. I'll do it. I'm completely oblivious to how painful the 400 is. My coach always says, you ran like a bat out of hell. I'll run. I catch up to him by the time he gets probably like to the 220. I get to the 300-meter mark, and I'm like, what's going on? My buddy shut me down and everything. And I cross the line, and I'm like, you tricked me.
What's going on?
And he is laughing, hysterical on the floor, just crying. And that was welcome track and field for me. It was definitely welcome track and field for me.
What a great story, because there are a lot of us listening that have either been personally in that same story, or we have all seen that kid who, goes out and you're like, oh my God, is this kid like a 44-second kid? Like, who is this Quincy Wilson? What's going on out there? And then the 200 meter starts telling the truth, and the 300 meter is the truth.
Yeah.
Hey, you finished though. I remember, when I coached at Troy University, we hosted one of the high school region, or the high school regional was hosted there. And so me and some of the kids went and watched, the kids, see if there's anybody I should be recruiting. This is way back before the internet made, life a lot easier with recruiting. And this kid, I think it was the open 400. I don't think it was a relay. And just same thing, bad out of hell, right? I mean, I'm like, wow, how do I not know this kid? Like, he's in our area. Like, oh my God, this kid's, he's got probably 48 seconds or something, gets to 200, what's going on probably starts entering his mind by 220, 240, the proverbial bear or refrigerator jumps on his back. No kidding, the kid just walks off the field at 300. He was so bad. He was like, all right, bro, that just didn't work out. It was just done.
I've seen that before too.
Yeah.
I've seen that. I had a kid, he was from Africa, I forgot what country, and when he's like, put me in the mile, he sprints 2 laps and he comes around number 1. And then on the 3rd lap, I didn't see him. And then at the end of the meet, I saw him under the jackets. And I said, man, what happened? And he just looked at me. He said, Coach, I didn't know it was that hard.
I know track can humble you, and I imagine that's a lot like it is in boxing as well. What's the famous quote from Tyson? Everybody's got a plan until they're punched in the mouth. You know what? That could absolutely be applicable to track and field. Everybody has a plan in that 400 until the 300 meter punches them in the face, and everybody has a plan for the mile until the 4th lap hits them in the face. So, how did you learn from this? I mean, there's a lot of people that would, from that pain and maybe some embarrassment because you caught the kid and then didn't after that, things like that. Some kids, for good or bad, that's it for them. They're like, hey, this ain't for me. I'll stick to football. But you stuck with it.
Oh, 100%. I was so I grew up on GM mode, Madden, NBA, NHL, MLB, back when video games were a lot more fun to play by yourself and not online.
Sure.
So it became addicting because I was already addicted to playing games that was challenging, where you had to build something up. So that summer, I just put on a piece of paper, and I was struggling academically too before I started running track and field.
Yeah.
But I think when you run track, you got to look in the mirror. You got to self-reflect. So, man, that summer, I wrote down everything I was bad at. I was like, I just said, man, everything I'm bad at, I'm going to get good at. I got in. Everybody, I already know what I do well.
What year are you going into this summer?
That was after my junior year.
So going into senior year, you sit down and, this is interesting to me because I think it's hard for 40-year-old adults to do this, to look in the mirror and say, hey, here are the things I'm not very good at. What am I going to do to improve on them? A 16, 17-year-old kid, boy, I don't know that there's many of them that are doing that at all. You said, here are the things you said bad. I always like say not good. I'm not good at. I need to get better at them.
100%.
Wow.
I think from a young age, my fear was everyone asked me what I fear of, not to succeed, right? So I went down, and I was always the youngest in my group growing up. Always the youngest, even in boxing. My dad used to lie on my age because my skill was good, and I put me like 2-3 years older, stuff like that. But I wrote everything down, and that summer I did everything that I wasn't good at so I can become comfortable. I'm a horrible basketball player. Now I'm like Ron Artest with no offense. So, I went to parks, played basketball just to get used to not being good and being confident,
Hmm.
playing in front of people, that anxiety, right?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my gosh, his shot is broken. And we have some really good basketball players that come out of Connecticut, right?
yeah.
You got Kane Broom, who went to Cincinnati. You got a couple others. Kane Broom, I went to high school with him,
Hmm.
so that's the number one guy that sticks out to me.
Right.
I did everything that I was bad at, even in the classroom. I remember telling my mom, like, hey, she got me a private tutor at home. So I was going to school and coming back because I wasn't the best student. I wasn't the
Hmm.
best athlete either, right? My best sport was boxing. I told my dad, I said, hey, I'm gonna put boxing aside and I want to focus on some other stuff.
Wow.
That was it was a real interesting conversation. He's
Yeah.
like, you serious? I said, yeah. I said, I realized that I'm doing boxing for you.
Hmm.
Um, but I want to do something I want to do. And when he asked me what I want to do, he thought it was going to be football. I even put football aside.
Hmm.
And I chose track. It
Wow.
was something
Well,
about that
yeah,
self-reflection.
yeah. Why track? I mean, you have success in boxing, you have success in, there's a real team component to football. So, I was a football player, so I know, the draw that is that, and I know the sometimes pain and loneliness of track and field as well. Why, out of all those things, you had, basketball, academics, why stick with track?
I think it was my first opportunity. I want for me as an athlete, football, I've been on programs where you play running back, you run to the red zone, the coach puts his son in,
Mm,
touchdown. So
mhm,
you got all the rushing yards and then no touchdown. Boxing, I think I had like two losses on my record where I felt I won.
mhm.
And went back and watched the tape and clearly I outscored the dude. But the kid, the promoter of the event, I was fighting his fighter and
Mhm.
you know he got the nod,
Right.
split decision. But then I go back and watch the tape, and I was like, man, track and field, no one, I've
Right.
never seen in any state, any country, if you win by 10 meters, they can't rob you.
Right.
So I fell in love with that aspect of it.
Oh, very cool.
My mindset, and I tell my team to this day, everybody's praying to God to come in first place. I'm not praying to God. I'm just saying, let my hard work let me come into
Hmm.
what place I deserve.
Hmm.
And it's funny because one of my new athletes, he said, "Man, I took that model and he ran a 5 second PR. In the
Wow.
800, he ran 155. I think he ran 201 prior to that.
Dude.
So
Wow.
it's something about the mindset of just becoming obsessed with failure and pushing yourself to that breaking point.
Yeah.
And understanding the work you put in each day is what's going to give you your ultimate goal.
So what did Coach Shea, I think you said, so how
Yep.
did he go? What did you what do you think his reaction was? He went from, grabbing you out of the weight room going, "Hey man, you said you were coming to the track. Let's go," to you turning in your senior year going, "Hey, I've dropped it all. I'm putting all my eggs in the basket into track and field." I mean, he saw a heck of a transition from his side as the coaching side.
100%. He kind of just watched.
Mm,
And then I remember coming in after preseason because we had preseason. He said, "I'm going to do something crazy." And I'm looked at him I'm like, "What do you mean?" And we just graduated Jamal Brewster. He was a 46 guy in the four.
wow.
And he said, "I'm going to name you captain." I said, "Coach," I was like, "You can't do that." He's like, "Wow, I didn't, football, you don't play all 4 years. You don't play, right? Unless you're Barry Sanders." I was like, "I've only played 2 years." He said, "But you're a natural born leader."
Hmm.
Uh, they named me captain, and he said you worked hard for it. That year was a really good year. We went to the regionals. I think we qualified for nationals, but we didn't go due to funding at the time.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing behind that, I just went back to my alma mater, and the I was recruiting some kids from my high school, and the track coach is still there. One of them is still there. And he said, "Do you know we go to nationals every year because of you?"
Wow.
And I said, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, you were the first one to say, hey, so now we have it in our budget." That's
Wow.
something I never knew.
I've said this many times and I'll say it 1,000 times more until the day I die. The superpower of a track coach is they see something in others before they can see it in themselves. It struck me, and if you're watching on YouTube, rewind and look at his face. Your demeanor changed a little bit there, John, when you mentioned that coach looked at me and said, "You're a natural born leader." So, and you were surprised by that. First of all, because of your playing time, but maybe because of, all the other things in your life. Maybe no one else has ever told you were a leader, but coach saw that in you before you could see it in yourself. What did that mean to you when he looked you in the eye and said, "You're a natural born leader, John"?
I mean, I think it meant I couldn't let him down, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
That loyalty was there. I mean, I still talk to him to this day. It was a sense of loyalty that was developed, and it's track and field. High school coaches aren't paid what they should be in some
Right.
states. So you know that if this person's taking time out of his day, you
Mm.
know that he means it, and there was a sense of trust developed there. And I knew that was someone I could rely on.
So successful senior year.
Yep.
Did you stay a 400-meter runner?
I did not. I did not. I ended up going to so I went to community college for a year.
No, no, I'm sorry. Stay in high school for me.
Okay.
Through your time in high school, did you stay a 400-meter runner? Was that your main event in high
That
school?
was my main event in high school. Yes.
And now let's start working on, okay, transitioning from high school to college. Tell us about that. And what I'm interested, as you tell us, kind of where you looked at, why you looked at, you mentioned community
Mhm.
college already. Where is for, where is coaching in your mind? Is you being a coach at all in your mind as a 17, 18-year-old kid?
100%.
Really?
I was coaching my junior year of high school. I started coaching Pop Warner football.
Okay.
I coached the C team, or maybe the Mighty Mites. It was either Mighty Mites or the C team.
Yeah.
Um, Not a brag, but we went undefeated that year.
Okay. You know how much I pay attention to little kid
Yeah,
athletics? Like, oh, we were the national champs. Cool. You matured more than the other little kid. Come
yeah,
on, get out of here. Yeah.
100%.
But I get it. You still got to coach. I'm with you. I'm with
Yeah.
you. So when you're looking at what's next after high school, you're thinking about a major that I can get to become a coach. Like you're in on this?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
already. I knew from a young age. I was like, hey, I'm either gonna go and be a physical educator,
Yeah.
a coach, and that's even college. College is pretty interesting because I figured it all out in college. Like, okay, I know exactly where I need to be.
All right, well, let's start that journey. Where did you look at? What were you thinking? Again, you mentioned community college. You mentioned, yeah, I'm a former JUCO coach myself, so maybe, and you already mentioned kind of academics. Was that why we went community college, or talk to us about that
100%.
transition?
So, my mom wanted me to prove that I academically I was strong. My dad was 100% sports. My mom was 100% academics. My
Hey,
mom was
that's a
also,
good pairing, though. That's good. You need one of each, right?
man, my dad was always in trouble, man. My dad was always in trouble. Hey, don't tell your mom, like, man, she's gonna find out. But no, yeah. So by the time I graduated high school, I went to community college. My grandmother was the head professor of the English department. So
Dude.
I had to, I had to show up, right? It was interesting though because I actually worked as well. So I actually worked in a deli, at a Stop and Shop. I don't know if those exist anymore. But so I would work in a deli from 6 a.m., walk to the deli, and then catch the bus to go to community college. And they had a track team at the time, but when I got there, they cut it. They
Mhm.
cut all athletics. So I'm like, man, what am I gonna do? Um, so I remember getting a letter in the mail from Liberty University
Mhm.
for track.
Mhm.
You know, and my mom was like, "You're not gonna go there because it's too far." I'm like, "Man, okay." So I went there for a semester, and then the AD at the time was like, "Hey, come to Eastern Connecticut." And I'm just like, "Okay." I want to go to Central, but she's like, "Come to Eastern Connecticut." And then I ended up running track at Eastern Connecticut because I already had that relation with that individual.
Yeah.
Um, and it was really interesting. And what made me go to community college, I'm gonna backpedal a little bit, is I did play football. And I did go to Darrell Reeves camps up at UConn.
Mhm.
And I remember staying there. They had a summer program where, like, if you were being recruited, I forgot the coach at the time, but he came back. That was right when they had Darius Butler.
Yeah. Mhm.
Darius Butler was my mentor. They had a goal line project where he would come down to the schools and he would mentor me. So I was playing DB. I was thinking I'm going to UConn, everything like that. The
Right.
only issue was I was 135 pounds, 145 pounds, playing hybrid outside linebacker. That's when Clay
Right.
Matthews first came out, and I was only like 5'3". I'm
Oof.
currently I'm currently 6'1", 205 pounds. I did not grow until
Going into college. So as a 19-year-old, 18, 19-year-old, you were 5'3", a
Yeah.
buck 30. Wow.
I didn't grow until after. I remember seeing my football coach and the coaches after. Like, what happened?
Where was this?
It was this back then.
Wow, that's intro, and that does actually, John, go a little bit to my point of where I said, how much I pay attention to little kid athletics, because again, here you are, most males are going to grow complete by the time they're seniors and freshmen in college. You had a drastic after high school growth, again, maturation of little kids. I'm talking about the 5 to 14-year-old. It's like, who cares? Wait till you're a senior, then I'll find out if you're good or not. So that's so interesting, though. Did that? This is gonna be a weird question, John. Did that hurt? And what I mean by that is, kids. So I've got a 14-year-old. As he's growing from middle school into high school next year, there's years where he'll grow, 2 inches, in a couple of months, for crying out loud. And he has some body aches and pains because of that. Did you experience that as a 18, 19, 20-year-old kid as you were growing? That's drastic
Honestly,
growth.
I can't remember because I was training every day, so my body was sore anyway.
Yeah, good point.
I was always hoping to grow. That's the big thing. I just remember telling my sibling, my older brother, like, one day I'm gonna be bigger than you, and they just laughed. I'm like, yeah, it's coming. And then one day I just woke up. I don't even know when it happened because I had
Yeah,
actually have my old closet door I put in my basement. I used to measure my height
yeah,
every
yeah,
day, and they
yeah.
got the lines in there. But it's funny.
Wow.
Yeah,
So you're 6'1" now?
yeah, I'm 6'1".
Dude, that is a lot of growing at
Yeah.
that age and past. Holy cow. Dude, shoes are expensive when these little kids are little kids buying new shoes. Shoes are way more expensive as a teenager, 20-year-old. Holy cow, man. That's crazy. That's just, I can almost see your coaches be like, all right, you're not really John. Where's John? Come on. I know you look like him, but get out of here. Where's the real John? That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So you go, so you're still kind of journeying this football track thing, community college. You went to Liberty for a semester. Did
I
I?
didn't do the
No, you
Liberty.
didn't. Okay, yeah,
They sent me something in the mail for track. Like
yeah,
they
yeah.
sent me a recruiting letter, but my
Got it.
mom
And
wouldn't even
mom's
let
like,
me.
yeah, not
She's
happening.
like,
Got it.
because she was so concerned about my academics.
Sure, sure,
Yeah.
sure, sure. So but you do get your academics on track through the
Yep.
community college, and then go to
Eastern
not
Connecticut.
Eastern Connecticut, not East Central, yeah,
Yep.
Eastern Connecticut. So what are you doing? Are you playing football? Or are you running track, or
I'm
both at
running
this
track.
time?
I went there for track.
Okay.
It was pretty interesting too. I mean, it was I always told my mom, like, if I can get to the first semester, I'm going to I'll be fine. English was not my strong point because I've always been a more creative writer.
Even though grandma is a English teacher, for crying out loud. Okay, all
100%.
right. Grandma's so
Um,
disappointed. Oh man, that's just
I always I look at it, but I used to write stories as a kid. I used to write books as
yeah,
a
yeah,
kid. So I
yeah,
never really the MLA, APA, and I played the saxophone. I was an artist as well.
yeah, yeah,
We used to have art shows where the art pictures get selected and go to the mayor's office, and I was one of those kids.
yeah.
So to put me in, my grandmother gave me free range, right? So to put me in an English class and say I need you to write in this structure, and my grandma didn't teach me the structure
Right.
because she had more of a belief like the way you write is how you tell your story.
Yeah.
Um, she's
That's
always taught.
that's so interesting because on one hand, and again, probably my answer today as a father of two kids would be different than 15 years ago before I was a father. Like I hear that, John, and I'm like, oh, well, we should bless that. Like creativity and art, like there are, and while those things are important, storytelling, authors, actual art, whether it's um, uh, clay, or paint or whatever, all those are important, but they also lead to other extremely important things. Like, there are chemists who were artists growing up. There are engineers who are, like to me, I'm like, oh, fan that flame. That's really important. But then I also go, well, okay, but you do need to know sentence structure to help with your creation. So it's kind of I don't know, pulling on both sides of the rope there. But you're an artist first and foremost, growing up.
Well, yeah, 100%. My grandfather
Yeah.
built houses as well.
Yeah. That's
So
art. Yeah.
I was, I was more hands-on. I had to learn the book smarts of like the structure of it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's a good example. There
yeah,
is creativity art in like architecture, home building,
yeah,
things like that. Yet you better know the fundamentals or the walls fall down when you build
yeah.
it. So yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
Mhm.
Good point. Yeah. So what are you actually majoring in at Eastern Connecticut University?
Physical education and kinesiology. And it was
Now that is the opposite of art.
well, I
Okay.
would I would disagree.
Okay. Tell me how.
Because when you start learning the performance of the body, it's art. I mean, that's how I see it. When I
Yeah, agree with that.
yeah,
But when you talk about
oh,
kinesiology, when we're talking about bone structure and muscle structure, that there is no wiggle room.
oh yeah,
The quad has this many
oh
and it
yeah,
attaches here.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like that seems the very
Okay,
opposite of creativity. Yeah.
yeah. So I went in there and I remember teaching and I go into the classes and I'm working with the kids and like, man, I'm more interested in performance.
Mm,
Performance because you're teaching these kids stuff and it's like I want to teach them something they could do forever.
right.
So I kind of struggled there from that standpoint. From the anatomy standpoint, I retained everything. But then I realized, I might want to coach. So I started taking classes, USATF, stuff like that. And
Wow.
start and Kate
While
on
while you're in undergrad?
while I'm in the undergrad, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I met up with Kadon Samuels, the national pole vault record holder of Jamaica. He's actually one of my best friends now.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, I want you to write me this program, weightlifting program. I'm looking at him, but I didn't realize he was doing it to inspire me, right?
Mm,
He was doing it. So I
that's
started
cool.
writing this program and he's chewing me apart. He's like, oh, that's not it. You got to rewrite it. So now it turns into me and him training for a summer together and we're working out together, running hills and stuff like that. And that's when I realized, like, man, I'm actually a coach. And
Mm,
he looked at me, he's like, you're probably gonna be one of the best coaches one day. As
mm,
he looked at me, I'm like, okay. But we trained all summer. We actually talk almost every day still. And
hmm.
he has about 3 kids, and he's like, I'm raising them so you can train them now.
Wow, that's cool.
So I go to college and I start running. And my first year was horrible. I remember my first college race. It was like 24 on a 200, and it was
Mm.
it was cold. It was cold up north, long winters. And I just told my coach, I was like, man, it's cold outside. It's been a year off.
For a kid who grew up there, by the way. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, man. It's been your
yeah,
whole life.
yeah. So, and then I think my next race was like 70, 80 degrees, and I ran 22.2. So
Yeah.
one weekend 24, 25, next weekend 22.2, and she was like, oh, okay. Um, and then basically I kind of went to college my freshman year, enjoyed the student life,
Sure.
fun and all that stuff. And then I self-reflected again. That's my second time self-reflecting.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, I came back. I got into a meeting where they said, this percentage of transfer students fail, right? And I'm sitting in the room like, man, I must be failing because they invited me to this meeting. And then she goes,
They're like
"You're
a percentage of you guys, you.
so, so I'm like, man, I'm failing." And she looks at me. She looks at my grade. She's like, "It could be better, but you're not failing. You can go home." And there's like 15 other kids. I'm the only one that's saying they can go home. So it's scary. So I go and sit down with one of my professors, Celentano, and he's like, if you want to be organized, you got to come up with a schedule. So now then this life experience has helped me because now the schedule, the regime, and the order you're doing it in is going to relate to track later on.
Non-artistic, by the way, scheduling. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? I mean, we are. I
yeah,
think we are naturally bent one way or the other,
yeah,
and so I'm getting the sense like, oh, okay, John is a creative type, and so if John is left up to his own devices, it's going to be hard, impossible for you to create a schedule on your like just for you to go, I need to get organized. That's not creativity. Creativity is not organized,
yeah,
right? It's
yeah. It's
messy.
not.
And so you needed someone to sit you down and be like, hey man, okay, if you want to go through what society is, so grades and graduate, and you're going to have to get some structure up in
Yeah,
this thing here. Yeah, that's cool. Good for you to have that type of leader and mentor in front of you, teacher to help with that.
yeah. So by that time, I got organized. I think my junior year, or between my sophomore and junior, I made president's, dean's list, stuff like that.
Wow,
And
dude.
I'm looking at it like, man. But then there was one problem, man. I realized I was like, okay, I want to go into coaching. I'm taking these classes. So my my sophomore year, my coach names me captain. Right. And I think I'm working hard, but I'm not satisfied. Something's not right. I'm not being the best version of who I want to be. So I remember going into my coach's office and I said, I want to step down as captain. And she goes, why? I said, because if I'm a real leader, they're going to follow me regardless.
Mm.
I said, I feel like captain, you just get to tell people what to do. I said, I don't want to be a captain. I want to be a leader. And everybody's, once you captain, you never give up that type of power.
Mm.
I said, well, I'm not interested in power. I want to be a leader, you know. So it's funny because that next year we go into practice and the captains come up to me, what do we do? And I'm just smiling like, okay.
Yeah.
So it was really funny because from an athlete standpoint and from a leader standpoint, we had captains and the captains will always have their meeting and then come over to me and say, all right,
Mhm.
what are we doing? And I just remember having that conversation with her.
It's quite fascinating, John, hearing that, interviewing again, ton of coach. I don't know that I don't know that there's very many people who have interviewed as many track coaches as I have, as in depth as I have. So I really get to see, and we start from, young age, high school at the very least, and, third grade, 3-year-old for you as a boxer and stuff like that. And but I also know what 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids are like, right? Because for one, I was one of them. And, I've coached high school and college and things like that. It surprises me, but maybe it shouldn't, that a lot of you guys, meaning coaches today, showed a lot of maturity and humbleness at an early age. Not all of you, by the way. If you've listened to all of our episodes, we had some guys and gals who self-admitted knuckleheads as kids. But John, you're talking about, like, you get named captain. It's hard for a 18, 19-year-old kid, you're still a kid, to give up that ego. It's really about ego. Yeah, I understand what you say when you say power, but it's like, what real power do you have? You still have a coach in front of you and things like that. But it's ego. It's like, oh, look, I'm important. I'm a captain. I'm important. So for you to have a realization and understanding that, hey, you know what, that's cool and all, but I want to be a leader. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think there is a difference between being named captain and being a leader. 100%. I don't know how to verbalize that, but that resonated a lot. What I'm wondering is, as a 19-year-old-ish kid, having that realization or maturation, humbleness, that has to be, my experience tells me that has to have been modeled to you, that you had to have had someone in your life, whether it was a family member, teacher, clergy, parent of a best friend, somewhere you had to have seen that type of humbleness and leadership. Where does that come from for you?
I think it's just my family.
Okay.
Um, so digging a little bit deeper into my family, everybody on the women's side of the family is doctors, PhDs,
Yeah.
professors. I'm the first male in my family to get a bachelor's and a master's degree. So
Wow.
my uncles, they always told me and showed me like, hey, and my uncles went to the military. Um, we always got a joke. We call it the 50-star family because that's how many people we had in the military. My grandfather fought in Vietnam and he got a medal by the president before he
Hmm.
passed away.
Hmm.
So they will always tell me, hey, this is what I'm doing. Don't do this. Don't do that. So it
Hmm.
made me more observant. And I think that's why it's funny because I feel like my growth spurt actually I was downloading. I say it was downloading
Yeah, yeah,
for a
yeah.
long time. I was very
Yeah.
artistic and I didn't talk and I just observed. Then when I found my voice and I started to, okay, now I'm gonna start going. Now I know what path I'm gonna take. I start to grow with it. It's very interesting.
Are you a Marvel fan? Like, do you watch, like, Avengers Endgame and all that? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I do too. I love that stuff. But I'm always fascinated with the multiverse, right? And so when you're saying that, John, I'm like, oh my God, what if John would have been 6'1", 200 as a senior? Maybe John goes into the military. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just interesting, like, that path. And because I love how you put that. You're like, I was still downloading. That's another name for growing, but I love that the imagery of, like, oh, forgive me for this, little John, and there's still everything's still coming in though, height, weight, intelligence, humility. Yeah. I love that imagery. What besides maybe your height, and I'm gonna say this probably the wrong way, John,
Also,
but what helped you? How did you break? This is where I'm gonna say it wrong because I'm not correct with how I'm saying this. What made you? How were you able to break the curse of all the males in the Boisette family go to the military? And by the way, for you guys listening, you heard my caveat there. I was saying that wrong. It's not a curse to go to military. My family was military as well. I started actually military as a Air Force ROTC scholarship winner. So a lot of love and respect for our military. But maybe we need more professors and doctors and such as the women of the Boisette family went to. And you did not go military. You went more academic and teaching, coaching route. What made it for you as one of the first males to go get a bachelor's and go this route versus not a bad route going to the military?
I think my dream and my passion to coach in athletics, but it was always a plan B. If I failed at life, I guess you
Sure.
know, good benefits, things like that.
Yeah, I get
So,
that. Yep. I think a
so it
lot of
was,
people have that under like, well, I always could go this route. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean that's the big thing.
Yeah.
It was just my passion. Going back to not failing, right? I always put in my mind like any opportunity I get is the only opportunity I'm gonna get.
Mm.
I don't know when my next opportunity is gonna come. So my dad always like throws that in one of my siblings' face because I took my driving test one time. Every test I ever took is one time, and they took 4 or 5 times, and I'm just like, man, I don't care how I pass, I gotta pass. I'm gonna try my hardest to pass, and just knowing like, hey, I'm gonna do this at 100%, and and if I fail, I fail, but I'm not going to cry over spilled milk because I know I
Mhm.
gave my best. I know I was at a football camp, one time, and the St. Louis Rams tight end coach was there, and I always remember he's like the difference between you and the other person is that you're here.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I always think about like what does that mean? And the difference is I tried, right? I put 100%. Whether I felt I was too small, overweight, or whatever, I put my full effort in, and that already separates me from the pack
Agreed.
because you're gonna learn a lot more from that failure than any success you can get. And I tell my athletes this all the time. I said, think about every race you won. You get that yay feeling, right? But when you lose and when you PR, you go back and you meditate. You go back and you reminisce and you go back and say, what can I do different?
Mm.
I said, you should fall in love with failing, trying at 110%
Hmm.
than running backyard meets and just getting all these medals. You
Hmm.
learn a lot more from failure. And I think at a young age, I embrace failure.
I think that's critical, and that's obviously a very important part of your story, John, from failing at academics and failing at athletics, and how that has continued to move you towards success today. It's so funny. Literally this morning in a meeting, I talked about showing up.
Mhm.
That showing up sometimes is we'll say is half the battle. Sometimes it's more than half the battle. And I know plenty of people will say, "Oh, Mike, that's the least we can expect from someone is to show up." And it's like, well, you know what? The majority of people don't show up. I think about when you were a high school athlete. We have something like a million or 2 million, a million males, roughly a million females who run high school track. Well, there's many more millions of high school students. So way more than half the people don't even try our sport. They don't even show up to try our sport. And then when you talk about collegiate track and field, well, I think it's roughly 7% of high school athletes go on to compete collegiately. So again, showing up and being able to run college track, that's huge. Whether you are, that's why I don't think I have ever asked anyone their PR on this podcast, except for like a Larry Wade, who was, a national, world classer. I'm like, well, what did you end up? What was your PR, bro? But to me, it doesn't matter, John, whether you were a 45-second quarter miler PR or a minute 45-second quarter mile PR. That means zip to me. Who you are and what you do as a coach means everything to me. It doesn't matter how good or not so good of an athlete you were. You showed up, you listened and took direction from coaches, you formulated that into what your career is today, whether that is that is all. That is gold right then
Thank
and
you. I
there. So
appreciate it.
I love your story of showing up. I really, I want to continue the theme, if you will, of the like self-awareness of like, oh, I'm not very good at these things, so I need to figure out how to get better at them. I love that kind of throughout your story of like, all right, man, I'm not very good. I got to figure this out and continuing on. So, okay, so we're in senior year at East Connecticut. You're studying kinesiology. I could never. That's way too smart for me. You're thinking about coaching. Talk to us about your senior year, last year of running. Okay, the real world is tomorrow right after graduation. Talk to us about that transition.
So senior year, I think I took 3 classes. I was doing an internship under the athletic director at the time. And I took a creative writing class.
Of course, of course.
And it was, it was pretty. I got an A in the class, and the teacher wanted me to go to some type of training with Sports Illustrated. It was actually pretty funny. And I'm like, me? Not me. But I ended up having a race or some meet, so I didn't get to go. But senior year, everyone's asking me, what am I gonna do?
Yep.
Right. And I remember senior year, my grandmother was actually teaching a class with one athlete that was coming in, a recruit, community college kid, and she was getting ready to fail this kid. And the kid, I think he got one of her papers, he got a 20 on it, and then the next time he got a 65 on it. And I'm sitting there and I spend the summers with my grandmother. I help her out, everything. And I said, Grandma, I said, well, this kid got an 80 on the first test, he got an 80 on the second test, and he got an 80 on the third test. This kid has no progress. This kid is it's done. This is failure.
Interesting.
And she goes, what do you mean? I said, well, you're getting ready to fail a kid that showed you 30% progress, and this kid showed you 0. Who would you hire? And then my grandma was like, yeah, you need to be a coach.
Yeah.
She's like, you gotta be a coach. I was like,
okay, John, as the host of the podcast, it's my show, so I get to push back
yeah,
whenever okay, so I'm going to push back a little bit here, John.
yeah,
So I'm going to challenge you is really what it is. Okay,
yeah.
so let's use that same scenario and let's use the quarter mile just maybe because it's easier. So if you get a kid in on your campus and let's say they run 40, let's just use easy numbers, 48 flat for the quarter as a freshman, and through 4 years, they into the senior year they run 48 flat. Yeah, that's their they don't PR, roughly around the same, right? But 48 is is a solid leg for you in your. I have no clue. I'm just making up a number here. As a solid leg, is always first, second, or third in your conf. Like they're accomplished for your team. Or you can and so that's athlete A. That's Alvin, and then athlete B, Brian comes into your program, ran 52 seconds, walked on to your program, and got better sophomore year, junior year, senior year, and by senior year they are running 49 flat. You're happier with athlete B than you are athlete A?
To a certain extent. And this is why. Don't get me wrong, and that's why it's like a bee, right? Bees are not supposed to fly, but they can, right? His work ethic, right, is going to be very contagious. And we know track and field, if you have one negative person in that group, it's over. So I like the grinders. They need to understand, I don't have captains on my team. We have leaders, and you need to understand your strengths and weaknesses.
I assumed you did something different with your captains. I was going to get into that. Yeah.
Oh, you have none.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to know everyone's strengths and weaknesses. And when your strengths is called, you need to step up, right? So
which one of those athletes are you putting on the anchor of your conference championship team?
The anchor, I'm putting the slowest kid on the anchor.
John, Tifers exist. I can go and look.
No. So if I have 4 kids, right? My 4 fastest kids, whoever has the slowest time goes on anchor.
Okay, so that's a strategy you employ as a coach. All right.
I want to create a moment, and I want to put the pressure on.
Well, dang, when you say it that way, all right, fine. All right. Well, I'm gonna take the 48 kid all day. I love the 49 kid.
You mean from those 2 that you gave? I'm putting the 48 kid on there.
Well, that's what I said, John. I'm still on athlete A, athlete B here because you're telling me like, well, the kid progresses. Like, well, the other kid got 80% on his test. It's still the best score, so he's got to be the favored one. All right, let's keep going. All right, keep going. So what are you gonna do your senior year? I love that question because you get that your
Oh,
senior year in high school, right? Senior year in college, it's all over again. So what are you gonna do?
so my senior year, I go back to my alma mater, walk across the stage, and start coaching the next day. Um,
Really?
we had my coach and my sister. I think at the time, I believe she was like 15 in the country in Hammer.
Oh
I was
wow.
I was driving her down to Long Island to train with Patty Russ.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
so, and I'm watching her, and then we go to nationals. I think we take a 200 kid, a 400 kid, both relays, in a triple jumper or a long jumper. And I go through, and it felt really good. We go to nationals, A&T. We
Yep.
go down there, and I get back, and I start applying for jobs, and I'm applying for GA positions and Regis
What kind of jobs? Like track jobs or like,
track,
yeah, I
track
just
and
need a
field
job. Yeah.
jobs,
Okay.
track track jobs, like
College or high school or mix of both?
college.
Yeah. Okay.
College jobs. I realized I couldn't coach. I was a decent high school coach, but the number of kids, right, and trying to get that high quality, that was a struggle for me. I
Okay.
couldn't. Um, it was too many bodies.
Yeah. Sure.
Um, so I said, hey, I want to do something a little bit more concentrated.
Mhm.
So I went to get a grad assistant position in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Yep.
I took that job, and I remember telling my sister I'm leaving, and that was the last time she threw a hammer. Yeah,
Oh,
she was she
dude.
was she was very upset.
Oh.
She went to college on a full ride. Coach called me every day. Hey, can we get her out here? It's like she's probably not coming out.
Wow.
But I think she enjoyed it. I think Patty's one of the best coaches,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
arguably, especially in Hammer.
Yeah.
She got a chance to be trained by someone. She got the experience.
Yeah.
Um, it's funny because she messaged me, I think like 2, 3 years ago, like, do you think it's too late to come back? I was like, it's never too late.
Never too late. That's
Um,
right.
Especially still in your 20s.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I went to Regis College. Now I'm at Regis, and
hmm
I get a new chance to prove that I'm an academic dog, right?
Okay.
And that
Yeah.
was the most thing I
Yeah.
was excited about.
No one has
Under
ever said those two words together, by the way. I've never heard anybody say, I'm an academic dog. I'm a linebacker dog. I'm a quarter mile. No one says I'm an academic dog. I love that. It's so cool.
so I mean, I go there with something to prove, a chip on my shoulder, and everyone's like coaching. I'm like coaching. No, I'm gonna try to get a 3.5 or above, and for my cumulative GPA. And everyone's looking at me crazy, like, you're going to go coach. I'm like, no, I'm going to go prove academically. Because
Yeah.
undergrad, I was, I was just under a 3.0 in undergrad. Um, so I go there, and I'm excelling. I think I graduated with a 3.6,
Wow.
right?
What was your
Uh,
graduate's
Health administration.
yeah,
Um,
dude. Okay.
so I go with a 3.6. We won 3 conference championships in 2 years. First
Wow.
time in program history.
What
Um,
what event group were you working on? Because you're a little variety here, So
I was
what
sprint, jumps, and hurdles.
yeah, okay. All right. Yeah. Ed
And
Regis, great school. Yeah.
I assisted with cross country
Hmm.
as well. So I went there, and I remember going there, and I remember we had Fatima St. Hilaire. She was a long jumper, talented, talented. I think she won like 8 events at conference.
Wow.
Um, and she came in. I think came in at like a 4 foot jumper. And then she ended up going like 5'8" at
Wow.
meters.
Yeah.
In like 2 years.
Nice.
But it was pretty interesting there. Very, because I got to meet Austin Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I knew him because we competed. We seen him all the time.
Right.
And Austin Taylor is probably a huge had a huge impact on how I view track and field from
Great dude. Hmm.
money making standpoint.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
so talk to us about that. There's lessons there. He imparted lessons on you, so now you get to carry on the Austin Taylor legacy. What kind of advice? What did you take to heart from him?
well, I mean, I remember one time I wrote something up from him, and he just gave it back to me. And I mean, the fact that he told me it wasn't good enough, you
What do you
gotta
mean? What do
understand.
you mean you wrote something for like a workout?
No, he wanted me to write up team rules,
Yeah. Got it.
coaching philosophy, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he gave it back to me. But most people look at this and get upset. But you gotta really think about it. If you care for somebody, most of the time, you're gonna give it back and give you critique. and
Mhm.
then open the door to come back and return.
Right.
So then I knew, okay, this is someone that actually genuinely sees something in me, right?
Hmm.
A
Hmm.
lot of us is too, we run away too fast when someone gives you that constructive criticism. Carson looks me in my eyes and says, "We know you can coach, but can you do the other stuff?"
Mm.
And I look at Carson, I'm like, "What other stuff?"
Yeah. What did he mean? Yeah.
The phone calls, the fundraising, all
Hmm.
that stuff, and he's
Hmm.
showing me everything. He's showing me, the tricks to fundraising.
Now you're at Regis.
I'm at Regis.
Halston is at MIT.
Yeah, I was driving hours to meet
Oh,
him.
this is interesting
Yeah, I was.
because it's one thing. I love this coach mentor, young coach mentee relationship. We need more of that. In fact,
Yeah,
and I hope this podcast helps with that. Seeing young coaches and older coaches, more experienced coaches, etc. So here's a coach who, I mean, has nothing benefits him from helping you. And by the way, he's got his own things, right? He's a head coach of a very good D3 program. He's got his own kids to worry about, recruits and life and things like that. And here he is pouring into you.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely. And I think that helps because it helps now. Even today, when I'm in meetings, and a lot of people like cut track. A lot of people say, "Hey, cut track at universities," and we don't talk about the revenue from tuition track and field could bring, right? I think that's very. Everyone says track and field doesn't make money, right? Every meeting, but no one talks about the revenue track and field brings, guarantee money,
That's right.
um, from 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 the
Yeah, tuition, room and board.
tuition.
Yep.
Sorry, someone knocked
Yeah.
on the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's all good. Futures,
so
meaning alumni donations. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
That's exactly
and no
right.
one talks about that, and that's something Austin told me. He told me when he first started the program, he went after certain majors because he knew those majors make money, and he knew he looked at the long term, short term realistic,
Yep.
long term optimistic. Um, so yeah, I think from that standpoint, I learned a lot about that. And then Jeff, Boston North, um, I've spent some time with Jeff. I ran for with them with their club team as well and learned.
Mhm.
He had Stephen Headley at the time, so I'm just gathering all this information again. Jeff's picking my brain, I'm picking his brain. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna coach. I'm coaching. I got some time, and then even Kebba at Harvard, I spent a short amount of time with watching. That's when he had Gabby there,
Mhm.
um, and I was just watching. Kebba's a very interesting guy. I mean, he's
Yeah.
very laid back. I'm like, so you don't have to be like this all the time. Kevin walks in, he's
Yeah,
like,
he is the
man,
opposite. Yeah,
yeah,
of most. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah,
he's very he's very intelligent.
yeah.
Um,
Gill Connections OG, by the way. I think he was guest number 5. He was in single digits,
yeah,
and we had such a great time with him. We only got halfway through his story before we had to break, so he actually has a part 2 as well. So if you guys know Kebba Tolbert or want to know more about Kebba Tolbert at Harvard, highly encourage you to look in the same app that you're using here and search up his name. Fascinating journey as well from him and where he came up to where he is today. So sorry, John, you mentioned Keba, one of my favorite people in the whole world. So
yeah,
I just had
yeah.
to plug him. Yeah, keep going, keep going.
No, so yeah, I mean, I remember an athlete came in, didn't want to train, and he like, you're not gonna make him train. He's like, no. He's like, we got 7 days a week. He's
Hmm.
like, as long as they get these workouts in, we're fine, no meat. I'm like, okay. So
Hmm.
I mean, it was a very. I think I spent probably a month, 2 days out of the week, and mind you, I'm in Regis, Weston, so I'm driving hours to
Yeah.
have communication with these people. And then my first time in Massachusetts, I didn't know how hectic the city was. And I remember saying, "Hey, I'm gonna go into the city for lunch. I'll be back in an hour." And everyone just let me go. And I came back at 5 p.m. and everyone just started laughing. I was like, "Man, the traffic is." That was my first.
It's unbelievable in Boston,
Yep.
baby.
So I'm like, man. So everyone was laughing. My boss
That's
was laughing and
awesome.
stuff like that. But Regis really helped me from a standpoint because at first, my first year there, I thought I was lucky. Like, oh, I got these good athletes. Maybe I'm lucky.
Hmm.
And then when I got there, back to nationals the second year, I'm like, maybe I belong. You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
that was the big thing. But Regis was proving that I could be academically strong and coach at the same time.
I think when you talk about a GA position, I think more people who go through track and field coaching GAs should not go on to become a coach. And what I mean by that, not because they don't have the ability and things like that,
Mhm.
is, a GA position is still supposed to be part of your, like, do I want to be a coach process? Now I think the percentages of the GAs for track and field that actually go on to coach is probably much higher. It's not 100%, but it's probably 80, 90%. But so as you're going through your GA and you're coaching Regis and you're just soaking up knowledge. I mean, you're just like this sponge, man, of like, and really good things are getting poured into that sponge. It's really quite amazing. As you go through that, usually I ask the question, are you committed to coaching track and field at this point? It seemed like you were already, like the dial was already like, I am a track coach.
The only reason why I did the GA position is because I don't think my AD tricked me at the time, but she's like, you're going to need a master's degree to coach. So I'm like, oh, all right, I got to get this done.
Yeah.
And when I was at Regis, I also did I think it's the US TFCC. I did my strength condition under Boo as well.
Yeah. Oh, bro. Another great podcast guest that we've had here. In fact, our number one episode is Boo Schexnayder. Yeah.
So Boo, I mean, it was funny because Boo was speaking French in the class and I could pick up on some of it. And he looked at me, I looked at him, and he said, you speak French? I was like, yeah.
You're like, yeah, I'm cool. Yeah.
So it was pretty funny. Boo's pretty laid back too. He gave me his contact. I mean, I'm pretty sure he gives everybody his contact, so I'm no one special.
Yeah, no, hold on. I knew you were going to follow up and say, I'm no one special. First of all, he probably does. He is selective, though. He ain't giving everybody, but sure, he does because he's a giver. The real, like, treasure that Boo is he will answer everybody who contacts him. That's his real treasure. You are someone special. I hate when people say, well, I'm no one special. Yeah. First of all, you got to know and meet Boo. That's special. I mean, in our world, there's a lot of us, but it ain't everybody. And by the way, outside of our world, it's nobody. You know what I'm saying? So that is very special, and he's special. So that is a special connection. I love it.
And I remember
that's my mentor from coaching. So I am always, I love that man to death.
And I remember how intense his class was. So like at that point, I was going into my second year. I'm like, if I can get a high grade in this class, I know I belong. I remember I think I got a 98 in the course. And I was just like, okay, I'm gonna go with this. And I started writing programs. I actually, whenever I get too creative, I go back. I created something based off of that, and I call it the Holy Grail. And I go back because sometimes you get too creative, like your golf swing. You get that, and you try to add a little bit, and then next thing you know, you got way off from what your golf coach taught you, right? So then you got to go back to ground zero.
So double click into that because that's interesting. I love how it ties again right into your creativity spirit that you were born with. So you have this kind of like, I'm gonna call it the fundamentals almost of like, okay, here's what you got to be getting done and what's got to be happening. Coaching is an art form. There is our artistic leeway for things, and you said when I get too far from the core, the fundamentals, I have this holy grail. I come back and kind of center myself. That's what I heard. Does that sound okay?
100%.
How do you know when you're straying too far, right? Because like there is this like, if this is your center, your fundamentals, you can play out here, but over here, and if you're not watching YouTube, you have no idea where my hands are. I get what, but you're way over here. How do you recognize I'm here? So I need to come back to the center. How do you feel that, or how does that happen?
For me, it's that rapport you build with your athletes along with the times and stats. After every workout, I'm asking my athletes, hey, how did you feel? What did you feel from this? Well, did your kinesthetic awareness improve? I tell my athletes, I don't want athletes, I want student athletes, right? So every workout we do, I tell them, this is what you should be feeling. This is why we're doing this. This is this phase. That way, because I remember when I was an athlete, I can feel what workouts work, right? And I might not like that feeling. If it's a broken day, oh yeah, coach. And some of my athletes, my quads feel full. I'm like, okay, that's good. That's good. That's the pain we want. Coach, we want this pain? Yes, that's the good pain. Is it a stabbing pain or is it a burning pain? Oh, it's a burning. Okay, that's lactate. Athlete A meet lactate. I think you have to be very observant. And Jeremy Fischer, I talked to him when I went to San Diego.
Another, you know what, John, you're just naming all these Gill Podcast alums. I love it. Great friend, Jeremy Fischer, also a podcast alum. You guys got to listen to that episode. Keep going.
Yep.
I need like a little button every time a podcast alum gets named, like, a little bell, just so you recognize, like, all right, that dude or dudette was on the show. Go listen to him. Keep going.
And I remember like talking to him about my coaching philosophy. And, he very said, yeah, use your paintbrush, like, but always have a core. And I told him that. So, like, it's pretty funny because I told him like my coaching philosophy, we went through it and stuff like that, and he basically definitely motivated me to keep being creative. But you got to have that control variable, right? That go back to
Mm-hmm.
biology, IV, DV. So you
Mm-hmm.
have that athlete where everything you're doing is not working. So then you pay more attention to that athlete because I find that athlete, and this is where it goes back to that kid that's most improved. If it's helping the more developmental, we call it developmental group. If it's giving a high spike in the developmental group, what is it going to do for that elite group, right? If
Mm-hmm.
that developmental group goes from, I had a kid that Kadion, he went from 25 in high school to 21.3 in a year, right? So what what was that base in his training? You
Mm-hmm.
know, something that was creative in his training might become part of the base.
Right.
Um, and that's kind of where that's why I like having those grinders
Mm-hmm.
because those grinders you can get a little bit, you can use your paintbrush a little bit, and then you can see when you document what's consistent
How
for
do
that kid.
you, how do you or do you not, and therefore how do you, when you have a more accomplished athlete versus it really this is kind of maybe training age, right? So you have a
Mhm.
younger athlete that comes into your program, hasn't run track for very long, or hasn't run, maybe didn't do weights or something like that in high school, and you have your kids who are, conference finalists, they're much more accomplished, they've been in your program for a few years. How do you like not treat the more elite, more accomplished athletes different? And what I mean by that is like you have this center line, these fundamentals, which I think is highly important. I think that's super smart, and it's easy for us to go, oh well, this using those athlete A and athlete B that we had earlier. I have a 48-second quarter miler. Well, I need to be doing a little bit extra stuff for them because they're more accomplished. When in reality, it's like no, they still need to be very very good in the fundamentals. How do you not get caught up in the times or distances and try to do something differently with them versus your developing athletes? I might be asking a little awkwardly.
I think I get what you're saying. I think it's all about culture in the program.
Mm.
And that, remember, I don't have captains, leadership, right? And knowing your strengths and weaknesses. So
Hmm.
that's also knowing identity. If you're a developmental athlete, you need to know that. But I let them practice together because the art that happens there
Hmm. Hmm.
from that elite athlete gets to look at that developmental athlete and admire and reminisce. I remember when I was
Hmm.
there, right? And I don't want to get back there, so I better,
Hmm.
I better grind today, right? And that,
Hmm.
that elite athlete can motivate that younger athlete, and now he's being coached and doing a little bit of coaching.
Right.
Hey, coach, so my elite athletes are also learning how to coach and practice. Hey, coach, I'm seeing this X, Y, Z. Yeah, you remember when you used to do this? Okay, go tell them. What did you
Yeah.
feel? Because I'm 31. It's been about 10 years since I've been in college.
Hmm.
So I might not know how that feels, and the language is changing today too as well.
Hmm.
With
Hmm.
the kids as well, and the way they communicate.
Hmm.
Um, the way you learn is different. So having that culture of having the lower kids there, and they understand. I tell my athletes, I'm not trying to get the most out of you in 4 years. I got the Kobe Bryant book, and he talks about how he want to master two skills a year, and by year 8, he'll have a whole bunch of skills in his bag now. But if he
Hmm.
tried to master every 15 skills in 1 year, he'll be a master of none. So he's
Hmm.
1 to 2 a year. And I tell my athletes, let's master one thing this year, one thing this year, that year. Make it a 4 year plan. That way you're not burnt out. That way you don't peak. And then you go on a 1 year drought at times. Let's take it step by step and let's look at it from a really developmental standpoint. And then put the components together. So they
How do you? That's interesting, and it reminds me of Joe Newton, famous high school coach at York High School here in
Mhm.
Illinois. I hope I'm not misattributing this, but my memory serves that he had some amazing. He's now passed away. Amazing distance runners like Don Sage was either a sub four or four flat 401 miler, and tons of other Marius Bakken. I mean, just he produced a lot of really good collegiate people that would go on to run in college. And there used to be an argument with him about like maybe you shouldn't do. I think he was a high mileage guy, so you shouldn't be doing these high mileages with these high schoolers because you're getting everything out of them at 18 years old. They don't develop when they go to college. That wasn't necessarily true, but in his rebuttal to that was, most of my kids are not going on to college here. I know it's cool to talk about these, four flat guys, but most of the kids are not going on to run college. Remember, 7%, roughly 7% going to college. So I'm going to give them the best experience they can in high school. And that resonated with me. It's like, oh, it makes a lot of sense. 99% of his kids aren't going on to college. So make this the greatest experience they can have and get to be as good as they can. In college, I think of that same thing. Again, 99.9% of all of our kids, even, Mouse is another Gill podcast alum. And so I always like, good friends, I like to use him as an example. Even Mouse at Florida, highly accomplished, 99%, maybe 98% of his kids aren't going pro, right? So this is the last time they're going to run track. John, for you, 99.9% of your kids are not going to go on to run professionally. But what I heard was, but I don't want them to be peaked out by the time they graduate. Well, that's the last time they're going to run track. Do you not ever think about like, man, I better hammer them for 4 or 5 years because it's over. 22 years old, it's over for the majority.
No, because I don't want to kill the sport of track. What I mean by that is, I want them to still have that passion to do it if they want to, right?
Okay.
I don't see, as long as they're improving, if you PR each week, you'll eventually get to where you need to be. I want the athlete to be able to walk out and say, I want to continue pursuing.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you burn an athlete out in 4 years, first off, you're not going to get a donor, right? I know a lot of people that ran track and they're hurt, and they're hurt.
A lot of negative feelings towards their experience. Yeah.
So I think it's more important. And, right, don't get me wrong, we still prioritize performance.
Yeah, right.
But I think too, letting them walk out and say, hey, I want to continue to pursue track, because I feel like a lot of those kids, if they get close enough, like if Dion's a sophomore right now, he runs 10.5. And I told him, like, if you run 10.3, you got an option, right? You could postpone going to the real world, or you can go pay a coach to see what they can do. But I want to send my kids out the door with an option.
Yeah. All that proves, John, is you're much smarter and longer term thinking than I was as a coach. Because I'm like, man, I ain't got you after senior year, so I'm going to get everything. All right, let's get back. Regis, graduate school, you do a great job academically as well as, I won't say athletically, but coachingly there. What happens after Regis?
I go up to Utica College.
The Pioneers.
Yep, Pioneers.
Yeah. I did their hurdles a couple years ago. And they're beautiful. They're one of my favorite hurdle designs ever. So I remember Utica very well. So you go to Utica with
Jim.
Jim. I almost said John. Jim. Yes. Love him.
I call him Megamind. Jim is probably, dude. It's funny. I just finished texting Jim the other day. I call him Megamind. He's very creative. Very intellectually smart. I think he was valedictorian of his class out of high school.
Dude, I can't even spell valedictorian. That's awesome.
Jim probably one of the best bosses I've had.
Oh, fun.
As far as organization and structure. Funny story. Still young at the time. I go work for Jim. And they have the bubble.
Bro, you're 31. You're still young today. Relax, all right?
And they have the bubble.
Yep.
And I just remember being this young, motivated guy, and we have this meeting about blast the music too loud with curse words. And I remember the next morning I come in, this is like week 2 on the job. We're blasting music. Jim comes in. He's like, dude, we did. I was like, but I was like, no curse words. He's like, but the music's loud. I'm like, oh. And me and Jim go back into the office and we start laughing. Funny thing is, nobody from the neighborhood made a complaint about the music being loud that morning. So Jim goes and apologized to the AD at the time. And the AD said nobody called. And so Jim said maybe it is the curse words that's why people complain about.
Yeah.
So it was funny. I think like we blasted music maybe 2 or 3 more times after that with no curse words. Nobody complained. But at Utica, it was a really good experience. Jim let me do whatever I wanted. We had Ishanae. COVID hurt, because we had Ishanae Cofield Jackson. She was a 200 girl. I think she came in running 29, and we got her down in like 25.
Wow.
But I was running the strength conditioning program. I was jumps, hurdles, and multis. And Jim would just let me flow. And that's when I learned more the administrative He's very thorough. He'll type up Excel sheet, bus schedules with everybody's name, seat assignments.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, no, though Jim is really good. And then he would take like 10 kids. This you're gonna go grab equipment, right? You're gonna go grab equipment and stuff like that. Like he would every week a different kid. Then we had GAs underneath us, and he let me manage the recruiting with the GAs as well. And
Wow.
we had a kid. We would go back and forth. I think we brought in like 100 kids one year.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
and we do mail merge. We'll mail merge,
Hmm.
and send them out in the mail. I think a lot of schools see the money with sending the letters in the mail, and they don't want to do that no more. Everything's electronic.
Right.
But man, we would get random people showing up to the school like, "Hey, I got this letter in the mail." Never
Huh.
respond, and bring it on the first day of school and said, "I'm here to run track."
Wow. Hey,
Uh,
there's probably a section of us listening right now that doesn't know what mail merge means. Would you explain that a little bit? Maybe this helps someone. They start doing it.
so it's basically where you put on an Excel sheet. I have an Excel sheet with every high school in Connecticut address and then the guidance counselor name. You put the athlete name on there, and then you pack it up in an envelope. And we literally had to put them in an envelope ourselves, and you put it in the mail and you send it to the kid high school, and a high school counselor or AD gives it to the kid.
So the mail merge is the taking the data that you have in Excel and putting it on a label, right? Yeah. So how did you do that? That's what I'm like the actual like nuts and bolts. How did you actually do that?
So we had a GA, Sanid. Um, he coached for a little while. I'm kind of upset that he got out of coaching. He's a distance
I
kid.
told you it wasn't 100% GA
Yeah,
school on the
yeah.
coach. Yeah.
We would take states and we will have a competition. Who can get
Oh,
every high school in the state address? And we created an Excel sheet. I still have it today.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and we created an Excel sheet where when you put the high school, it automatically filled everything in.
Ah,
Um, so then we got the Excel sheet, and then we'll do like I forgot the setting. There's a setting where it'll auto print emails for every kid,
mm-hmm,
and then we just print it on the printer and then print out the labels.
mm-hmm,
You had to buy the label paper,
mm-hmm,
and then you had the actual letter, and it
mm-hmm.
will automatically switch the kids' names. And when we were literally hand packaging all of them.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's a
um,
function inside of Excel
mhm,
that takes the data. So you got to get the data, but then
yeah,
instead of going to the template for the labels or
mhm,
even on each envelope, instead of handwriting those, which would take you
yeah,
forever. It takes, okay, I've got
mhm,
this data. You tell it where to print the data, and then it automatically prints it. Now you're just doing labels
yeah.
for all. Yeah, okay, perfect. Good. I appreciate that because again, there's
No,
some people that there's something that's interesting to me, especially as I'm working towards this the Gill 1918 project. There's things that coaches will say. Mike, I don't know. There's nothing
mhm,
I know that no other coach knows, right? I mean,
yeah,
it comes from a very humble uh, background for a coach. But then I go, that's not true.
yeah,
Like that, this is a great example, John. It's like, if I said, hey, John, you should, talk about recruiting or something unique that you do. Like, oh, Mike, there's nothing I do that no other coach doesn't. It's like, you know what? Mail merge and you know it. So, so it's like, oh, I know it. It's a, man, if I know it, everybody knows it. It's like, I guarantee you, many people listening right now are like, I've been writing these freaking things. How long it takes me. I'm staying up till midnight every night. You just change someone's ability to be more efficient, more effective, so they can spend more time with their family, more time thinking about coaching, more time with their passions and charities. So it's always interesting these nuggets of coaches that and how can we spread that knowledge and that value to others. So I appreciate you explaining that to us for mail merge. It's really interesting. Okay, so you're Utica kicking butt, yeah, doing great, learning. Boy, it sounds like you're kind of a continual learner. Is kind of what I'm learning here. You're always like just again that sponge, just soaking things in, and Jim is letting you do a lot of things here at Utica.
yeah. No, definitely. Let me do a lot. Gave me free range. So I get there. We had a few national qualifiers while I was there as well. It was pretty COVID. Like I said, COVID. Yeah, COVID was kind of. It was pretty interesting. What's the coach name at Ithaca name? I forgot the female coach. Trying to remember her name.
At Essex County.
Potter, Jennifer
Okay,
Potter. So
at Ithaca.
Ithaca, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Jennifer Potter, you know how I know that for sure is she's an upcoming guest on the podcast. So
Oh,
you're just kind of setting me up here, John. This is really good. We did not practice this, I promise. But yeah, Jennifer Potter from Ithaca is coming on the show here in the next couple of weeks. Very good. Yeah.
so she did my level 1 when I was
Oh,
at Regis, but
yeah.
I've always kept in contact. I haven't been in contact with her for a while now, but initially I always did. And I just remember like she was like, "I'm gonna see you at nationals one day," and I just looked at her like, "Okay." But I say that to say we competed against them. They left our conference and stuff like that, but it was very much still a small rivalry. So we had to perform.
Hmm.
People don't D3 is very tough. I mean, I think people know now, but at that time people were still trying to figure it out.
Hmm.
You know, D3 was very tough.
Hmm.
Especially when you're up in that region that everyone's ready to go. Everyone's ready to roll. Everyone has some type of facility.
Hmm.
So it's a very good conference, that Empire 8 conference.
Hmm.
Um, just look at Fischer. They had really good jumpers, hurdlers,
Hmm.
stuff like that. It was a very competitive conference up there. But yeah, Jim let me do what I needed to do to learn. I think I ended up leaving because I had a conversation. I walked into Jim's office one day and I was in a financial situation, um, and I needed a raise.
Hmm.
And Jim looks at me, he tells me a story. He said, "Dude, I was a teacher. I withdrew my retirement to move here and become a coach,
Hmm.
right?" And I looked at, he gambled on himself. You gotta respect that. Sorry, Jim, if I'm putting too much information out there. Um, but he literally looked at me. He was like, "Dude, I want to see what you could do on a higher level." He said, "I got a wife and kids. I can't do much, but you have no wife, no kids. You're very good at coaching athletes one on one and in a group." And he was like, "Go shop and take another job." Like he literally told me to say, "Hey, I want to see."
What a great example of humility because you leaving does Jim no good. He's now got to go find another person. He's got to know if he trusts that. You guys had worked up a lot of trust and faith in each other. He's got to build that up with the next person. But yet he's like, you know what's maybe better for you, John? Maybe you need to go gamble on yourself. That's what a great testament to leadership and coaching from Jim there. That's awesome. I love hearing that.
Yeah, so I ended up taking the job at Lee's McRae.
Oh yeah.
Um, Lee's McRae. I think I spent 1 year there.
No, that's in
Um,
Tennessee.
No, it's on the border. It's in Banner Elk, North Carolina.
Yeah, North Carolina, North Carolina.
Yeah,
But where I was getting at, yeah, North Carolina, not Tennessee. But this is the first like a little distance from home now.
100%.
Yeah, okay.
100%. So I go up there and you know we have a tremendous success. I had Brian Sims, Zy Frazier, and Brittany Augustine. All of those kids, they all seniors, all qualified for nationals. And I think going back to the basics of that holy grail is where what I realized it really
Mm-hmm.
works.
Mm-hmm.
You got a kid that's a senior, been running 4 years. I think never ran 49. Never ran sub 49. And I think he ran 47.06 or something like that, or 46 high. In his senior year, he was always hurt and always injured. And he had Brittany who never broke 60 in the 400, and she goes and gives me a 55, a 56, and then a 54 a 55 on the same day
Wow.
after running the 400 hurdles.
Wow. Wow.
So, because she did the dirty double of the open 400
Yeah,
hurdles.
dude.
But you know, when you get to the politics side of track and field,
Mhm.
I think that's when I realized like, okay, track and field is very much the middle child of sports.
Mm.
From we generate revenue from tuition, but they don't view that as money bringing in money.
Right.
When I feel like a lot of universities should, not saying all, but some, I feel like track and field is really that middle child from a standpoint of politics,
Yep.
where we could bring in bodies. I think at Utica at one point we had 170 kids. Um, exactly, but we had the facilities and we practice all day. We had
Right.
waves of kids. Um, so I remember there I realized like the whole team was leaving. I think scholarships, something was going on with the scholarships. So I said, hey, it's time for me to go. So
Mm.
then I went back home to post, and then I got the post job, and AJ was another AD there. He was cool guy, Italian guy, cool, calm, and collective. And AJ's like, hey, I hate to break it to you, but we're about to cut scholarships.
Oh, jeez.
And I was there only for, I had this kid, amazing kid, Malcolm Beckford. His mom ended up being diagnosed with cancer, so he just left school. We practiced at Yale and what's the other school? They had a timing system. Malcolm was the 6'5" Jamaican kid. He can scratch his knees standing up. Shoulders look like shock absorbers. I'm telling you. Malcolm ran sub 21 in an indoor flat track.
Holy.
Freshman kid. I think he's JUCO right now. He's probably trying to make his way back to track.
Good.
But when they told me it was cutting, I was like, man, okay, restarting the process. So then I took on a challenge, and that's how I get to West Virginia State. Okay. I came here and I said, hey, new program. I'm going to build it up. I'm going to be a founder of the program. And at this point for my resume, this is going to be every component of track. You can't tell me I have a weak area. You're always going to have a weak area, right. But it's going to improve. So I came here and started the program.
So from Post to West Virginia State.
Yeah.
Okay. And the way you said it, the way I interpreted it, you started the program, or did they have a program?
At West Virginia State?
Yes.
So the last time they had a program was in the 50s.
Okay. So you're starting a new program.
Brand new program.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. And you came in as the head coach.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Talk to us about that, because coaching an established program is hard. Mm-hmm. You're starting from zero. I've got to get kids. I got to convince kids. We ain't got no track program. No one cares about that you had a program in the 50s, right? An 18-year-old kid today is like, I don't even know what the 1950s are, bro. How do you build that? How do you start from zero? How do you get kids interested? How do you build a staff if they allowed you to have a staff there? Talk to us about that, because that's fascinating to me.
Man, it was interesting. I spent the first 6 months working from my house. I have ordered 2 monitors, my own personal laptop, because they were still trying to get everything ready. Small HBCU.
Yeah.
The alumni are excited. The alumni were very supportive. They were trying to get everything ready. They told me, 6 years to really get it started. And I told them, hey, my goal is December 3rd is my birthday. So that's normally the first meet of the year. So I'm like, December 3rd next year, we're going to get started. I know they wanted me to run a club team at first, right? And then scholarships, some of the kids are already on campus. I said, no. If we do that, you're going to ruin the integrity of the program. We might as well wait a year and bring in passionate kids about track, because if we bring in all these walk-ons, it's going to become a club team. Right. And then the program will go belly up, because then you're going to have all these kids complaining. You're going to have kids that's not used to training properly. And then you're going to have a high rate of injury. You're going to have a kid that probably haven't ran since he played hide and go seek, and then try to come run.
Since he was the 3rd grade mile champion in Army boots. I get it. Yeah, that's exactly right.
So, so I came in, I recruited every day, and it was hard to get people here, because I don't know if you noticed, but we don't have a track.
Right.
We don't have an indoor or outdoor track.
Right.
So, I had to get creative. I drove around the town. Another thing is West Virginia State don't have indoor track.
Oh, so right.
It's hard to recruit. And West Virginia kids as well. I think we only got 3 kids from West Virginia. And then I think like the year before I got here, they had signed off on something to redo every turf at every football field in West Virginia. So they dug up a lot of the tracks and never put them back. So there's like 1 track in our county, and like 12 different schools use it.
Wow.
So I'm already realizing, like, hey, we're gonna have to fight to use the track.
Yeah.
And then, like, I think the hours they gave us for the track, even today, is between like 6 a.m. and 10.
Right.
So I'm waking up early every morning, 7 days a week. So what I end up doing is I recruit, and I bring in. We had about 100 commits. My first year here.
Dude.
And everyone's looking at me like, man, how did you bring in 100 kids? Dude, we had a kid from Zimbabwe just show up. And he's literally with the paper, like, hey, you recruited me, I'm here to run. And I'm like, man, like, what?
That's cool.
We had 3 kids from overseas, no scholarship. Just come over and say, and then just show me the email.
Wow.
And I'm laughing, because they called me down to a registrar and said, these kids, they're saying they're from track. And I'm like, so I get down there and, they're like, hey, coach, how you doing? I'm like, who? But you never responded to me. So I'll go back to my email. I'm like, man, I must have missed this text. I must
Right,
have missed
right,
this
right.
email or something. He's like, no, I just got the paper. I came here for opportunity. I'm ready to run. I loved it though.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it showed that I did my job recruiting.
Yeah, yeah,
100%.
yeah.
So we get in here and then we realize, hey, I put the school in a housing situation.
Oh,
There's not enough housing.
right, 100 kids, and I'm assuming West Virginia State's a smaller school, so
Yeah.
that's a huge influx of new kids. Right, right, right.
Yeah, and it was funny because I think originally another reason why I had left post is because they couldn't house my kids that I was trying to bring in.
Mm-hmm,
They were still trying to, posts are growing school.
mm-hmm.
So that was one of my main questions I asked in my interview, like, can you house the kids? But I think thinking new program, we won't have that many kids. I was
Certainly.
This is 10 years of me planning a mega program.
It's interesting. So another Gill podcast, I love George Williams from St. Augustine. He has a saying that I really take to heart: if you're not in the huddle, you don't know the play. And so I hear people squawking about, well, how come this university can't, recruit 100 track kids? And it's like, housing is an issue, right? And so here they have this John kid. You're still young. You're an adult. That's not fair for me to call you kid. I'm just older than you, so I call you a kid.
Yeah.
Comes in and says, "Hey, I'll build your track program here. Do you have the housing for them?" They can't go, "Yeah, sure. What do you think? You're going to do 100? All right, we'll go build dorms." They can't just build.
Yeah.
First of all, you don't just build dorms by snapping your finger. Second of all, they can't just by some track coach. No offense, no one thinks better of track coaches than I do, and I'm still like, dude, you're a track coach. I can't build $1 million dorms because you say you're going to bring in the kids, but then you do it. So now they got to react to that. Yeah, holy cow.
I mean, I think to be honest with you, I think because I was so confident in my plan, but like I tell everybody, if you play football, you go in every year trying to win the Super Bowl. You're not like 5, because realistically, if you say you're going to go 5 games out of 10, you're probably going to go 2. So my mindset is I can't lose, right? I can't lose. And if we fail, we'll get there. But we're not going to worry about failure. We're going to prepare for every option, right? So, I think it caught people off guard a little bit, had all these kids. We ended up retaining, I think, 70 out of 100, right? By the time school started, some kids was waitlisted.
There's no stats, but I wonder for new programs that do an influx of, whether it's 50, 100, 150, like right off the bat, I wonder what the actual retention rate of that is, because I feel like it would be fairly low. So when you say 70, so 70%, that seems pretty high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just had a meeting the other day. They said my retention was 1 out of 5. I mean, 4 out of 5.
I was going to say, that's not good, John. Okay, good. 4 out of 5. Yeah, that's much better, much better. That's like, you should not have said that stat, John. That was not good at all.
4 out of 5 kids.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty decent. And I think so. I'm like, well, how can we be better? And they're like, be better. Like, keep it right here.
Yeah. Don't go down. Yeah. So how many years have you been there at West Virginia State now?
2.5, going on 3.
So I love this intro. Where are we at today? And by the way, that was yesterday. I mean, 2.5 years, 3 years ago, that's nothing. So what's amazing to me is hearing that story. And, I got to see and hang out with you at Nationals a few weeks ago. So it's like, well, something's going really good. Talk to us about the status of the program today. Were those 100 original pioneers, honestly, for the program? What's it look like today? How many kids do you have on the team? You're making kids to Nationals. Tell us about that.
Currently, we have 69 kids on the team. Out of the 69, I think 55 of them are active. Again, there's certain kids where they're developmental, and I'm like, hey, let's take a year and not waste this eligibility, right? Because we don't know, we don't know what's gonna come. We don't know if you just need time to let your body get acclimated. The women's team is both teams are very talented. The women's team is a little bit more stacked. I think we could next year we might have a little bit more athletes at Nationals on the women's team.
Yeah.
We just signed a girl that ran, I think, 39 in the 300.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's pretty decent.
Yeah.
I know the last girl I had that ran 41 was at least able to run 55, 54.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping she can transfer that 39 to something. It was real interesting because I had a kid from West Virginia, Candace Morris, and I did my level 3 project on her. And she was the fastest kid in West Virginia. I think her. She ran like 12.2, 12.1. And I get her, and the town is pushing her. I'm going to take her. And I get her, and she's the most uncoordinated individual. I mean, she tripped 3 times the first time I did a practice with her, and we laugh at it every day. She sprained her ankle, all right, like literally just trying to do the normal dynamic warm up.
Oh
So I'm
Lord.
like, man, I gotta put this girl in a bubble. Never wait.
Doesn't that excite you though? Because
Yeah,
like if she's
100%.
running 12.2 and it's like, man, she's the most talented person, coordinated. It's like, well,
Yeah.
dang, how much better can she get? If it's like, dude, you're 12.2 and you can barely chew bubble gum and walk, like, all right, we got something to work with, right?
So, and it was funny because I remember like we got Candace, and someone goes, she's not that talented. Every time she leaves West Virginia, she doesn't win. So I'm like, okay. So I tell Candace, I don't tell her who it is. I'm like, hey, we're gonna use this as a little bit of motivation. I
Yeah,
said, not for you, but more so for me,
yeah.
right? So she comes in, and Candace is a hard worker. She's like, what do I need to learn? Like, first of all, you can't do even she couldn't even do a plyometric like a jump. It was
Everything. You need to learn
everything,
everything.
everything. So I'm like, well, you got a lot to learn. So she's like, I gotta learn all this. She's like, no, you just gotta learn this. So I tell her like, learn rhythm, like literally just get the concept of rhythm and plyos
Right,
this first year, and
right.
we'll be fine. She comes in and she goes, I think she runs 7:58. And then she goes to the hospital for like a month. Mind you, I'm doing my level 3 project. And then we have a huge storm where a tree knocks down the house and everything right in the middle. So she looks at me, she comes back, and after a month, I'm like, dude, your season's over. Enjoy the rest of the season. She's talking about PR, and I said, if we try to squeeze that out of you, who knows? You probably get hurt. I'm
Right.
like, just enjoy the season and just learn.
Yeah.
So then she calls me at the end of the season and she goes, Coach, can we work out this summer? I'm like, sure. I'll send you a program, XYZ. She was out there every day.
Hmm.
Um, we did a lot of basic stuff, just learning how to get into triple extension, learning full range of motion, learning that full range of
Mhm.
motion is power, stuff like that. And fast forward today, she ran 7:42, 7:41. Um, and it's funny because now we're at the point now where we got to get her 100 meter to reflect.
Mhm.
Um, and I look at her mechanics. Her mechanics is very much of a 400-meter runner with a little bit more back mechanics than front
She
mechanics.
probably doesn't want to hear that.
No, she actually asked me to run the 400 the other day. Her first time she ran it, she ran 56.
Let's go.
So I told her, I was like, hey, we might move up to the 4 next year, but we're not going to rush it. 4-year plan. Remember,
Right,
let's
right,
squeeze
right.
every drop we can out of the 60 and the 100, and we'll
Yeah.
go from there. Um, but then we have our other story. We got Dion. Dion's this kid. He's from, I think, Detroit, Michigan. And he was a pain in my back. Let's just say that. So every day I called it. Dion, we had a really, he's one of those kids you knew you could be a grind, like you could be stern on.
Hmm.
Dion come to practice. Hey, Dion, you're gonna run cross country this year. Me? So we had this running joke. I called Dion a waste of talent every day. But like we talked about it, and I was like, Dion, you could be such a great athlete. He's just a waste of talent. So every day I was like, what's up, waste of talent? And Dion's looking at me. So he's running cross country, but I told him I got plans for him. Now Dion's coming in. I think he only ran like a year and a half of track. Basically, he's me, right, in high school.
Hmm. Hmm.
Academically not great. Um, I think I did 2 years of track in high school, junior and senior year. I'm like, this kid's gonna be great. I can
Hmm.
see it already. And Dion's looking at me like he asked me one day, like, well, why do you think I'm gonna be so good? I said, I just know.
Hmm.
So he runs cross country, and we have to trick him into running cross country. And I got this kid named Kurt. I'm like, Kurt, you're gonna wear your jersey and you're gonna start the race and then just turn around. And then so Dion can go run cross country. So he runs the race and he's like, you tricked me. I'm like, yeah. I was like, how did it feel? He's like, oh, it's not that bad. I was like, well, that's how I feel when you don't come to practice prepared. He looks at me and he goes, from that day on, Dion starts to work. He
Wow.
runs indoor. I think he's running like 23s, 24s, and he's upset. So now I come in and I have him talk to Wadley Genesis. I do Wadley. She comes in gold medalist 4x4, I believe. Um, I have her do a Zoom meeting with my whole team.
Oh, wow.
Um, the connection with Wadley, she went to UMass, while I was at Eastern.
Hmm.
Before she went to South Carolina
Hmm.
on the Kiram. And So I have her talk to my whole team, and she tells them like, hey, like D1 is a monster. Like she tells them like she went to the hospital X amount of times to get acclimated. You literally just have to die. And from that meeting, I think it just clicked for him. He just came in and practiced throw up everywhere.
Hmm.
Like, Dion, you're all right. Yeah, I'm all right. I'll be fine. He's like, I'm no longer gonna be a waste of talent.
Wow.
Every now and then, I think the first time he ran 21 something. He came up to me. He's like, I told you. I'm like, no, I told you too. Yeah,
It's interesting about that, John. As you're telling that story, my natural reaction is to not be happy with it, to be real frank
sure.
with you. Like I was like, man, I want to interrupt you and say, hey, John, you remember when Coach told you that you were a natural born leader, and how that made you feel and what that set your course forward. What if he would have said you're a waste of talent? I have a feeling you would not have liked that. But what I'm realizing is everybody is different. So
Mm,
how one person needs to be motivated is different than how another. And I think that's what you're showing is the skill set that maybe I don't have. Like I would be that guy today, by the way. I wasn't this guy when I coached, but today I'd be that guy that tells everybody you're awesome. It's going to be fine. You're going to do you are exactly where you should be today. And I would overdo the positive side, and somebody would be on my team going, man, I just need him to tell me I'm a waste of talent. That's the kind of motivation I need. And you are showing the talent that you have, like okay, this person needs this kind of motivation. This person, they're all individuals, even though I have this homogenous team. So it was really interesting to hear that. And for the sake of time, John, we're getting close here to our time. So I love the beginning of West Virginia State. I love the current state. So as you look in your crystal ball, we're in the middle of the 2025 outdoor season, which is going to be over before we blink. It's so amazing how fast that season goes. And you look, you're a smart enough guy. You're looking at 26, 27, 28. What's got you excited for West Virginia State University track and field?
I think that we're trying to get a track on campus, right? That means we get, more effective training in. We probably drive around 10 to 20 hours a week. Kids
Oof.
could sleep, more study time. And then the developmental of Dion and Candace. I mean, I think he ran 10.5 last weekend. I think he can go at least point 0.2 to point 0.3 faster. And then seeing what, after the season, seeing what's next for us as a university and as an individual. I think you, there's no right answer in life. It's just you gotta know every scenario. And I think I'm seeing how it plays out. I think that's what I'm most excited for. Um, hopefully I'll call you and say, hey, we're getting started on a facility. Let's get some stuff.
Yeah.
What products can we get? I know when I took the job, they told me I was getting a facility, so I think I ordered a whole bunch of hurdles from you guys
Mhm.
early because I know the
Thank you.
prices of hurdles are going to go up by like 20%. So I
Brother,
was like,
there's a new tariff probably in the last hour that we've been speaking of. So yeah,
yep.
absolutely. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
told the university, I said, get the hurdles now because that's going to be the
Smart.
one thing you don't want to buy later.
Smart.
So we got a whole closet full of hurdles right now.
Mhm.
But no, I think just starting a program and being that kid that played Road to Glory and a GM
That's
mode,
right. Yeah.
and you watched how well you can make a franchise.
Yeah.
I'm doing it in real life now,
Yeah.
right? And I think I haven't worked a day in my life, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, there's ups and downs at every university, but that's life, right? And that's how you know you're growing. But just watching the maturation of the program, and people say, "Man, you got a 10.5 kid and you have no track."
Right.
You know, I mean, there was days where I cut the track in the grass,
Hmm.
and then you make sure you got to cut it real straight to have lanes, right? You go out there, and I'm at Lowe's with the string and yarn and the sticks to get the right curve. Like I'm doing all this,
They
man,
don't
and
teach you that in USATF level one.
I'm putting stakes in and finding the potholes going in, and
Yeah.
this is all my personal money, right? I think I
Mhm.
put like 10 grand into this program. I'm getting dirt and I'm pouring it in the holes and stuff like that. So I'm real curious to see where this program in the next year. I mean, with the recruiting class we have coming in, we're going a little bit more concentrated rather than numbers. But
Mhm.
also, I do have dreams and aspirations of coaching on a
Mhm.
D1 level as well. So I'm there's no right answer. It's just
Yeah.
whatever opportunity presents itself.
Yeah. I love how something that caught my ear, the way you said that you're curious about the future. Most people would say, I'm excited about the future. I'm pumped for the future, things like that. to me, curiosity is the true overall superpower in life. To me, the people that I've seen succeed the most in all aspects of my life, whether it's track and field, financial, familial, etc. They're always curious people. So it was like a little ding in my head when you're like, I'm curious about what's going to happen here in the next couple of years at West Virginia State and in the next few years in my career. So I really thought I wanted to point that out. John, again, there's no bigger cheerleader, no bigger fan of track and field coaches than me. I think every coach, when they go to a program, it's interesting. It's hard. Coaching is hard. You're dealing with, on the high school level, 14, 18-year-old kids, and college, 18 to 22-year-old kids, and a collection of all different backgrounds. They grew up in great backgrounds. They grew up in not so great backgrounds, athletically, not athletically, academically, not academically. There's everything in between. But to me, there is something special about starting a program from scratch. History is important. So it's cool to have, a top 10 already established and, facilities already established. And God bless, I want that for everybody. But there's something about, you're 31 now, looking back in 20, 30, 40 years, when you're 50, 60, 70 years old and going, you know what? I built that. I helped build that, because you have a whole team around you, administrators and teachers and athletes and such that are there. So to me, it's really cool to see it from the beginning stages. The first 3 years. It seems like, I bet you those 3 years, on some days they probably feel like, yeah, man, that feels like 30 years, and other days it feels like, man, I just got here yesterday. There's all these different emotions and projects that you have to do and overcome, and so it's really exciting for me to be able to be on the sidelines and to see that, man. Again, you just started the program yesterday, and I'm seeing it at nationals, and I know what I should say it a different way. I know what you don't have. And so like, to me, it's like, oh man, get this, again, I'm gonna call you a kid, sorry. But get this guy resources, and what can he do? Like, he's doing it on shoestring here, no facilities, etc. Give this coach some resources, and you think you're doing good now. And I know this. Boy, there are so many steps and ladders upwards for you and your athletes and for your program. And so, like I said, it's kind of cool to be on the sideline and be able to watch it play out, my friend. It's really cool. Very cool. John, man, the most valuable thing you can give me is your time. I know you're busy, whether you have an established program or not. Coaching is busy. We're right in the middle of track season. I'm always so humbled when someone apologizes for not getting back to me. And I'm like, bro, I get it. You ain't got to apologize to me. It's track season. I get it better than anybody. So really grateful for your time today. Really cool to hear your insights. This is one of the more intriguing ones that we've had on the artistic side of things, but yet being very centered with that holy grail that you call it as well. So it's very interesting to see that dichotomy of both. And I think that's super important. I think maybe we make some errors when we go all the way to one side or the other. So to see you combining those two, I think has been a testament to what you've done this early in your career. And it makes me excited about what is next, man. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your openness and authenticity. And I'm truly grateful for you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And my next podcast, you're going to be a part of my story.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I love being in the background for a lot of coaches' stories, man. It means a lot to me. Thank you guys so much again for being here. Again, check out. So this is Monday when this publishes. And of course, you may be listening to it on Wednesday, or you may be listening to this years in the future. It's 2025. Maybe it's 2028 for you. I just had an episode. Stacy Leitney from Madonna University. He was on the show back in November of 23. So almost a year and a half ago. And someone listened to his episode today. I thought that was so cool, man. So go back and look at our library of coaches. We mentioned Kebba. He's been on the show. Boo Schexnayder are still our #1 most listened to episode. Jeremy Fischer, he's been on the show. So there's so many amazing evergreen content for you to check out here on the Gill Connections podcast. And then Tuesday through Sunday, every day that we have content, we will be publishing the Gill 1918 project right here, same channel. There's not a new thing to subscribe to. So be subscribed here, and you'll enjoy 10-minute to 30-minute episodes, X's and O's, TED Talks of track and field podcast. That's what we're creating, but it doesn't work without you. So if you're interested, hit me up and I'll get you the instructions. Super easy to do and create your own episode. My passion is to help coaches literally find their voice, and I just want to be a conduit for that. So again, thanks for joining us this week. Join us tomorrow. We'll be back with more coaches and more content and value for you guys. Thank you so much for being here. We'll talk soon.